So I want to thank everybody. It was in short notice that we put this together, but we're very much concerned. The way that we honor our veterans is basically by giving them the best service in the country. And I pride West Virginia on always trying to do that. We've had some challenges over the period of time, but I still think in everyone's heart, our veterans are everything who we are, and it represents our state and the quality of people that we have in our state. About 4 hours later, we had so many people that wanted to be involved once we decided we were going to do something like this. So we have you by coming virtually, and those that are here with me today. We're going to start around so everyone can see who we have and the people and what they represent and who they represent, so you can make sure that we got a well-rounded group that can help us find the solutions we need. And we'll start.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan McCormick, and I'm the Director of Military and Veterans Affairs, the Veterans Advocate for Marshall University.
I'm Bill Ellswick. I'm a veteran, just here to represent veterans.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm Rob Ferguson. I'm the president of the Military Officers Association for West Virginia, and I'm also just a veterans advocate.
I'm Randall Bear. I'm the chairman of the Governor's Veterans Council, as well as all the organizations.
My name's Ernest Green. I'm with the DAV in Logan, West Virginia.
Ted Diaz, Cabinet Secretary for the West Virginia Department of Veterans Assistance.
Wayne McDonald. I'm here representing the Vet Center in Logan, West Virginia. We have the Purple Heart, Marine Corps League, DAV, all that in the same building. So I'm here on behalf of them.
Todd Morris, veteran. I'm here representing the Almost Heaven chapter of the First Cav. Great to be part of this, and thank you, Senator Manchin, for having us here.
I'm Larry Whittington. I'm a veteran, and I'm here to represent all of us that feel like that we need to speak up.
I'm Robert Brown. I'm a veteran here, and I'm just glad to be here amongst fellow veterans.
Well, let me just tell you, we've got everyone covered, I think, and we're all here for the right purpose. We're all concerned about the cause.
Hi, I'm Jim Creasman. I'm a veteran advocate in Greenbrier County and part of the Jim and Jim show for Senator Manchin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Everybody on the Zoom too. Introduce yourself.
Senator Manchin, my name is Kevin Light. I'm the adjunct quartermaster for the VFW State of West Virginia, and along with here with me is William White Jr., a local post commander and District 2 commander for our post in District 2.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Who else we have?
This is
my name's
this is John Powell, the past department commander for the American Legion.
I'm sorry. Please repeat again.
This is John Powell, the past department commander for the American Legion.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for having us, Senator.
Appreciate it. I saw Ann Erling there. Ann, are you still on?
Yes, sir, I am. Good afternoon, Senator.
Good
I'm
afternoon.
Ann Erling. I'm Governor Justice's Deputy Chief of Staff.
Ann, it's good to have you. And the governor's office is well represented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator, this is Jeremy Harrison. I'm the president of the Northern Panhandle Veterans Council and founder of Help Being Here with Us.
Thank you,
good afternoon. This is Mark Rosenkrantz. I'm the Director of Veterans Upward Bound for West Virginia. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Anybody
My name's
else?
Roger Ware. I'm the past commander of the Marine Corps League, West Virginia.
Hey, Ron, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Roger? Is it Roger?
Okay.
Okay, buddy. Anybody else?
And Senator, this is Ronnie Wheeler, commander of VFW Post 9926 in Mason, and the future State Legislative Affairs Committee person for the state of West Virginia for veterans for VFW.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Senator. My name is Danielle Harmon. I'm an Air Force veteran, and I am a member of the Northern Panhandle Veterans Council.
Thank you, Danielle.
Good afternoon, Senator. This is Adam Truex, Navy veteran and member of the Governor's Veterans Council.
Thanks, Adam. I saw John there. John, you there?
I'm here. Good afternoon, Senator Manchin. I'm here, VFW Post 573 Commander.
It's John Alloy. For disclaimer, he's my cousin too. Anybody? Did we miss anybody?
Senator,
Hello? This is Bill Mangus, District 12, Commander from Ohio, VFW, also Post 4464 in Gallipolis, Ohio.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Senator, this is Jerry Wood. I'm the director for the Center for Veteran Military Family Programs at WVU and co-chair of the West Virginia Retired Military Council.
Thanks, Jerry.
I'm Daniel Horowitz with American Federation of Government Employees. We've been working closely with our local in Clarksburg over the downsizing there and with your staff in DC. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Jessica P. here with AFG as well. I'm stationed in southeastern Ohio, but working with the Beckley, Huntington, and Martinsburg, Clarksburg VAs.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Brian Hunt. I'm a veteran and also the Vice President of AFGE Local 2034 at the Clarksburg VA Medical Center.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody else?
This is David Sisler. I'm with the West Virginia Department of Veteran Assistance. I'm also the VFW State Service Officer and the VFW State Surgeon for the state of West Virginia.
Thank you, David.
Marilyn Park, also with AFGE. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being on. Appreciate it.
Senator John Mercer with the Northern Panhandle Veterans Council and Helping Heroes, retired UMW member.
Thanks, John. Have we caught everybody? Let me just thank all of you for being involved. I really appreciate very much in the attendance on such short notice. Let me just say for all of you all, the press is also probably monitoring and being on, because we want them to know exactly what we're doing. And if they can just see the ability to bring this many people together in such short notice, of the importance, of the urgency of this issue, because this thing will move faster than we know. And we're making sure that they hear loud and clear from West Virginians how important our healthcare services are to our veterans and the communities that basically have housed them, and also the employment base that comes from all this. So what we'll do is set some of the groundwork what we're going to talk about today. I've always said, we have, if we're not the most patriotic, we are one of the top most patriotic states in the nation, and that comes by the percentage of veterans we have per capita. So I've said, if you want to know the amount of commitment we've had to this country, just look on the Vietnam Wall. You'll see more West Virginians per capita on that wall than any other state. So we've given everything that we possibly could and have basically paid the supreme price for what we have today. What we're talking about is that what we've been hearing, that because of all the things we've done, now just whatever way they're gathering information, and I've always found sometimes information is not gathered accurately, and then you have at times when there's assumptions being made and it's not favorable for small rural states. And in West Virginia, we have 4 hospitals. How many CBOCs do we have? You know exactly how many we have? Okay, but anyway, on our CBOCs we have, and then also we have the portable clinic. We saw the one down south, our portable clinic. So we've done everything we can to give the services to the veterans, and we're going to continue to do that. I think a lot of you know that VA recently published their initial recommendations to the Asset and Infrastructure Review, or what we call the AIR Commission. And it was created as part of a 2018 Missions Act and signed into law by President Trump at that time. I think all of you should know that in 2019, Senator Rounds and I, Senator Rounds is a friend of mine he's my colleague, a Republican senator from South Dakota. Mike and I were governors together, so we had a long relationship and long friendship. And we introduced a bill to eliminate the AIR Act, which did not go over well, but we still tried. And now I'm thinking about reintroducing again. We think now we need to really double down on it. The Air Commission is supposed to modernize the VA. And so far that what we've been able to find has been just unfairly targeted rural areas because of population. Not because of the amount of service or the amount of concentration of service, but just population. And it's exactly what Senator Round and I thought would happen. Let me give you an idea how the government looks at things. Whenever you see money going to hospital, like this is, we're putting $100 billion to help hospitals, you would think it would be done proportionately. 20% of the population of America lives in what we call rural America. That's 66 million people that live in rural America. That's 20%. You would think, just by simple math, that any type of appropriations, the 20% would always be directed towards rural America. That's the only people that can compete. If you're in rural America, you competed for this pot of money. It's not the way it was. The first CARES Act that went out, I think there was $100 and some billion that went for hospitals. 7% went to rural hospitals. When we found that out, I made the readjustment. We're putting in a legislation that any amount of money distributed in categories has to be set aside 20% for rural. So this is something traditionally has happened for a long, long time. The Air Commission plan it's far from final. It's going to be under deliberation for at least another year that we know about, and I'll get to vote on any recommendations before they become final. I'm on the Veterans Committee in the Senate. John Tester is the chairman right now, a dear friend from Montana, and Jerry Moran from Kansas. Good people, a Republican, Democrat. There's 3 committees that'll really matter with this topic. Appropriations, I'm on appropriations. Shelley Moore Capito is on appropriations. So we have our 2 senators. There's only 2 states that have both of their senators, us and Montana. The only 2 states have both senators on appropriations. So we get a double bite at the apple, or to be able to stop some bad things. So we have appropriations and veterans. I'm on veterans, and I'm on armed services. So all 3 committees that I'm on, this is going to have to be approved through those 3 committee processes. President Kennedy said, a nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces, but also by the men it honors and the men it remembers. And I think that we have tried to do that better than most any state. I'm going to always stand by and fight for the things that we believe in. And we got to that, we had our troubles. It was a horrible situation we had at Clarksburg. And that's something that will never be repeated again, and it's something that should never be. But basically, it was just lackluster, just a lack of attention to detail going through the vetting process of how we hired people to serve our veterans. It was just a pure lapse of anyone really caring. And we brought that to attention, and some families paid a horrible price about that. So I'd like to hear from you all and hear from those who have concerns about what you're thinking or what basically you've heard that hasn't been properly reported, hasn't been accurately recorded, and it won't be evaluated properly. If the numbers aren't correct, I'll guarantee the outcome will not be accurate. And if they're trying to skew it to basically downsize into rural areas, they'll be able to justify what they're doing. If we don't speak up and push back. I think, is General Hoyer on?
I'm on, Senator. How are you?
I think you've been through some of this before in the old BRAC and how we handled it and what went on then. So maybe, Jim, you'd like to say something and be able to speak up on this issue.
Yes, sir, Senator. I appreciate you letting me go. Unfortunately, got to drop off here shortly. But first, let me say, as a veteran, and Amy and I as the parents of 2 veterans, how much we appreciate you jumping on this and taking the lead on this and working with the governor and Senator Capito, and I know Congressman McKinley's been engaged as well. This is really important to our veterans, and I greatly appreciate all your efforts there. I'd like to just focus on 4 areas that I think are important. Number one, as you pointed out, we owe it to our veterans to put them in a situation where they are comfortable getting care and they get care along with other veterans and people who recognize their specific needs. So to take these 4 VA assets and either reduce them or take them out of West Virginia is just an absolute disservice to our veterans, and we've got to address it, and we appreciate you taking the lead on it. I'd like to also cover a couple other areas that I've been engaged in and now engaged in. First is during emergency response. I don't think people at the national level understand how important our veterans hospitals and their staff are to part of our state emergency response to care for our veterans. So to lose that capacity would really be a detriment to our veterans, but to our state's response as a whole. And that's an area that they aren't considering, they aren't quantifying, and they really need to pay attention to. The other area is in my role along with Clay Marsh in leading the governor's pandemic response task force. I cannot stress enough how important our VA hospitals were to quickly executing support to our veterans in the pandemic, and specifically the rollout of the vaccine to our older West Virginians, which saved countless number of lives in West Virginia. And without the VA hospitals and that access to those veterans, and we know that people get care where they have trust and confidence and feel comfortable, we could not have hit the numbers that we hit with our vaccines for our older West Virginians. So they've got to consider in another pandemic or another major event like that how important they are. The last area, and this comes from my counterpart Clay Marsh and I both, and Clay is the Chancellor of Health Sciences. We believe that WVU, and I'm sure our sister facilities like Marshall, can be more involved and provide more care, but we believe the best way to do that is in affiliation with our veterans facilities, our hospitals, our CBOC. And one of the things that limits that right now is the VA has refused to provide the appropriate level of scale reimbursement for technical expertise coming into and supporting those facilities. So adjusting that and providing that support through our existing facilities is the best way, in our opinion, to serve our veterans who deserve the care. And again, I, both as a veteran and as a parent, greatly appreciate your effort and the way you lead the charge on veterans issues.
Hey, General, thank you so much, and I appreciate so much you taking the time. I know you have to run to another committee meeting and everything, but I appreciate you giving us some time on that. Also, I think I'd like to hear Olivia. Olivia, you on with us? Olivia she runs the committee. She's on the committee staff for me on the Veterans Committee, so she's the one interfacing with them continuously. Do we have her on, Terry? Olivia? Can she hear us, or? She can tell you what she's hearing from the committee's side and what the committee staffs are hearing, what got us all concerned about. You know, this thing could happen when they start moving, it moves pretty fast. If they start evaluating pretty soon, when those decisions are made, it's pretty hard to reverse them. The hospitals are what I'm understanding. The hospitals are what the most are in concern right now. Ted, do you want to go over some of the things you've heard?
Thank you, Sarah. There are so many pieces to this that concern me, that actually, as a not just cabinet secretary for veterans assistance, but also as a customer, I get my health care through VA. To caveat what off of General Hoyer, he is absolutely correct what many people throughout West Virginia and throughout the country do not realize, VA's fourth mission is this exactly, what he was describing. VA's fourth mission is to support the communities in times of emergency, whether that be man-made, natural disaster, or what we just experienced with the pandemic. It's the fourth mission, and that is statutory. Other parts of this that bring concern to me, the emergency room care in the 3 facilities that have, well, for lack of a better term, been targeted. Emergency departments would be converted to urgent care centers.
Yeah, let me, when you say targeted, why don't you go ahead and mention which ones you've heard have been targeted?
Now, the three hospitals, the 3 VA medical centers that have been recommended for these reduction in services. Beckley VA Medical Center, Clarksburg VA Medical Center, Huntington VA Medical Center. If you follow that line, that goes through the heart of West Virginia. Those facilities provide access to care to West Virginia's rural population of veterans. Their outreach is, the reason why we have so many is because we are a rural, mountainous state. As the crow flies, it may not be very far to go to these facilities, but if you're out in the hollers, I still have family down in McDowell County. I have family up in Morgantown area, up in Harrison County, Monongahela County. And these facilities are a lifeline. So when I say targeted, the reduction in services that we're looking at are converting the emergency departments into urgent care centers, removing inpatient care, removing inpatient surgery, removing outpatient surgery. These are services that our veterans rely on.
This is something you all been notified that could happen, or what they're going to be doing?
Yes, that is the plan.
Basically, the hospitals itself, it won't be a hospital.
Correct. It'll be a very large urgent care and primary care center where their doctors will be, their primary physicians will be, if those physicians haven't left to go to other hospitals, either in-state or out-of-state.
Hey, Marcus, you saying Olivia's on now? Olivia, you on?
Hey, sir, can you hear me now?
Now I can. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Everyone had a few technical difficulties.
Hey, Olivia, no problem. Tell us from the committee standpoint. Olivia, she's on my staff. She attends all the committee meetings with me. She prepares all the back and forth that we have, questions we ask, and also any of the details. She's able to get with the VA. Can you give us an oversight of what you're hearing, Olivia, and what they're wanting to do and what the purpose of all this is about?
Yeah, sir, there's a lot of murkiness right now because Senator Tester, whose own recommendations from the Air Commission also substantially hurt his state, he has an obligation to make sure that the commission is seen through. Senator Manchin, or Senator Schumer, who runs the Senate, also is not comfortable with the recommendations that his state has received either. So both the leaders who plan the votes and schedule the nomination hearings are going to be in a tough place. So we're not sure quite yet how they will go through the process of having us vote on the nominees and having us vote on the final recommendations. But we have.
When you speak about nominees, you're speaking about what?
The commission nominees who have been put forward but haven't been confirmed yet.
These will be commissioners will make the decisions. You're saying, right? These are
Sorry?
the people. These are the people that will be nominated to make these decisions.
Yes, they will be nominated to review the initial recommendations that we have and make changes, and then submit final recommendations to the president, who will get to vote them or vote them down or up.
The purpose of it is what? To save money? Is this what the purpose of it? Cost reduction?
Yes, the purpose of it is to modernize and realign the VA, but I think General Hoyer's hit on some pretty big points that it hasn't taken into consideration current investments we have. Clarksburg just built a new parking garage, and we're unsure if they even took that into consideration. We're unsure if they took into consideration how much the state benefits from the VA's infrastructure. It really does seem like the data they used to make their recommendations was flawed and had a lot of gaps in it. So we've been spreading that word throughout the committee. Like you said, we have Senator Rounds, but we also have a much larger group of bipartisan senators who we're trying to lead the charge, and they have some serious, deep concerns as well. So we've formed that group of about 13 senators as of now, who are coming together to try and make sure that we deal with the commission in the best way possible.
As any of our hospitals, do you all know of any of the hospitals we have? You're saying that 3 out of the 4 have been targeted for some changes? That's what you're saying, Ted, right?
Yes, sir. 3 out of the 4.
Martinsburg's the only one that, because of high utilization being over in a very populated area, does not look like they're on the cutting board.
That is correct, sir, due to their proximity to the DC Beltway.
So they would be saying, I guess, Olivia, that utilization, they don't think that we have enough utilization in our other 3 hospitals? Is that what they're looking at?
Yes, and they also, the recommendations that diminish services in 3 of our hospitals, they use the verbiage establishing strategic collaborations to provide those services elsewhere in the community. And it's very vague about what that means and whether or not they even assessed our capacity in the community to take on those services. So if we're no longer offering emergency services, is the local community going to be able to take that on? It's unclear whether or not the VA assessed that, and I have a feeling they did not. I have a feeling, like you said, Senator, that they're overly reliant on population.
Are you collaborating with some of our other senators who are going to be in jeopardy also, their hospitals or the larger facilities? Are the C boxes, any of our C boxes in threat?
We have, there's some initiatives to relocate CBOX to new areas, and I've been talking with some groups in the meeting today. Secretary Diaz, we had a great conversation about how much those make sense. Some of the calls to move our CBOX to different areas that there's a higher population of veterans may seem like a logical step because we're going closer to certain veterans, but it might also make the burden of getting to the CBOX much higher, or there might be, a bad snowbank there. So we're looking at their proposed locations to move some of our CBOX, and I'm going to be very interested to hear other folks' thoughts about that on the call.
Let me ask if there's anyone that we have here today that want to add anything to or ask any question or concern or something you might have heard that would be effective. Go ahead.
One of the concerns that I had when we were talking about moving services from a VA facility to a local hospital, like in Huntington, for instance, to St. Mary's.
Right.
If that happens, what happens 10 years down the road when St. Mary's says, hey, we can no longer afford to do this way, we're going to have to charge more, we're going to have to charge the veteran more to do these services. That's the kind of thing that scares me when I read that.
What they're considering, what they're saying is the private sector, they want the private sector to do it for what the federal government's responsible for doing right now. And what's the guarantee that the private sector will continue to do it when can't be forced to? I don't know how you would enforce a contract that would force the private sector to do responsibility is what the federal government has, is really what you're asking.
That's
Olivia, on the things that we're talking about now, I'm hoping you're taking running notes on all of this, because this will be part of the dialogue. And John Tesser's a dear friend of mine, and I'll be talking to John and him when we go back, because they have the same concerns that we have too. We have the same concerns. Anybody? Sorry.
Senator, thank you again for having us here. And some of this is kind of new as far as how deep this actually goes. I've been reading a little bit, but some of this is new information. And having been to 20 appointments at the Huntington VA for physical therapy for my knee here recently, I have to wonder, like you said, is this just population? Because I've been to the VA both for myself and with helping another veteran who was severely crippled in the back recently, and been to the Huntington VA at least 20 times this year. And it is utilized to the max. There's never a time that the waiting room isn't full of any of the departments I go into. The parking lot is hard to find parking in the middle of the day because of how much it's utilized. And I cannot foresee how I work in Huntington at Marshall as well. I don't see how the private sector could handle, at least in the Huntington area, that influx.
Well, the thing about, we've always said, and what we've made very clear, that if you take a survey of veterans where they want to get their services, it'll be at another veteran clinic or a hospital, a veteran hospital. Usually the people that are working there are there for a purpose, more so than just having a job and a paycheck. They have a respect and appreciation for the services that every veteran gave to our country and the services they can give back. There's just a certain bond. And I've never met a veteran that wouldn't prefer. What happened in some areas around the country, their wait times were great and this and that. So he says, well, we want you to get the best care anywhere possible rather than unusual long waits and things of that sort. Well, this has turned into a whole nother thing. And this is what we're concerned about now. Maybe it's been an intention of moving out of government, sponsored and responsible, into the private sector and see if they can blend them in. And I have not supported that at all. Let me go right here and then to Rob and then back up.
I'm sorry. When I first got out of the military in 1968, I had a very interesting experience that ties into what we're talking about today. I was 20 years old, I was recently married, had a baby, zero money, and I went to the VA in Huntington because I kept having throat problems, and so they had to do surgery in my throat and take my tonsils out and a couple other things. I couldn't get it to the VA in Huntington. I had to go to Cincinnati. Well, I drove down to Cincinnati and literally barely had enough gas to get there, and I planned on having enough gas to get back. I was there 4 days and I was still very sick. They literally took me down and put me in the car and sent me home after I'd had surgery and all that. The VA that I've dealt with in the last 10 years, it's a total different VA. They're very service oriented.
Yeah.
I go with family and friends to the emergency rooms and the local hospitals. They're nothing like the VA. The VA are the most welcoming people that you can ever get in a healthcare facility in West Virginia now. This would be a tragedy for people that...
Well, we're jumping on this early enough to make sure it doesn't happen. That's why you all are here today, and that's why we're going to continue to stay on this. Rob?
Yes, sir. We're all drinking from the fire hose right now. I haven't read the report. A lot of rumors and innuendo out there. One of the things that crosses my mind is when I worked for you years ago, before we ever went down a road with you. Before we went down any road that would lead to a decision, you made us do estimates of supportability,
right.
Time, money, manpower, and constituents. Tell me what it means. And if we hit a dead end somewhere and we couldn't get past it, then we didn't do it. It seems to me that this should have some pro forma estimate of supportability, where it lays it all out. What are the consequences? Because if you don't do that, you're going to get this. Everybody's going to tell you their story, and it's going to pull at the heartstrings, but I don't know what effect it's going to have on the big VA. I would like to see the detail where they come in and say, this is how. This is the impact. So it's more, my concern is more process. On a personal note, I read in the paper that they were going to close the Charleston clinic, which is relatively new. That place is a Cadillac. That's got to have a couple of $20, $30 million worth of equipment in it. I can't believe that they would even think about closing that. That's fraud, waste, and abuse in my mind. You just built the damn thing.
Well, the whole thing, everything you all have on your mind you're talking about right now, I hope you all keep a record of what questions you want to ask and what answers you're trying to get so that we can put all this together. So when it comes time to the formal review that we're going to have in our Veterans Committee, it'll come to Veterans, probably go to Armed Services, and the appropriate will be the last to see it. It has to go through that gauntlet first. And they're going to have to justify what they're trying to do, and I don't think they're going to get through. But I want to make sure that we can articulate from a rural state with a high percentage of veterans with the devastation, because we can't replace the services the veterans are getting right now. Can't do it.
Welcome, Senator, for inviting me today.
James got here just a few minutes late, so he didn't get to introduce himself at first. But James, thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Senator, thanks for inviting me, and your staff for inviting me. Your staff's been instrumental in my transition from the military to civilian life. We're still in that transition mode. A little bit younger maybe than some of you, but you guys paved the way for me beforehand, and somebody sitting beside me did also. That being said, I've got 3 things for you. Our civilian hospitals are having staffing shortages. I'd like to know what the staffing shortage comparisons are in the VA. I think the VAs are staffed better. EMS, emergency medical services, are having huge wait times at civilian hospitals. Where would we go in the prioritization of that if we come there? I don't think people want to go there. I'm confident they don't want to go there. I recently had an experience where a foster care veteran, didn't even know this existed, but a gentleman was living in a veteran's foster home in Logan County or Boone County. He was sitting beside me as an inpatient at the Huntington VA. He had no one. He's had no one for years. Where will he go? And then finally, Olivia probably has access to some metrics. And those metrics she needs to be looking for are probably HCAHPS. It's the patient's perception of the care they receive at the hospitals they receive in. What are the HCAHPS scores for a VA hospital in West Virginia? And what's the HCAHPS score for a civilian hospital? And those will be a metric base that'll give you some data to move forward. And again, I thank you for having this forum.
Thank you, James. We have Brian Hunt is on Zoom. Brian, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, sir, I do. I'm with Clarksburg VA. I'm the vice president to the union there. I'm also an Army combat veteran. I'm a patient there as well. To the point of, because what we've been talking about with veterans care, at the Clarksburg VA specifically, their recommendations are to close the emergency room, make it an urgent care, get rid of inpatient care, get rid of surgery, get rid of ICU. So basically gut the hospital and turn it into an urgent care. But from a personal note, before I was a VA police officer before my current position I'm there now, and veterans before COVID hit, veterans would come to that hospital just to come there. It's a sense of community. It's veterans serving veterans, and there's been many times where veterans have bypassed other hospitals to get to the Clarksburg VA. Their nursing staff and have taken veterans who are nearly passed away out of their car to get them to Richmond because they just wanted to go to the VA. That's where they wanted to go. And I think this is just another attempt at a privatization of the VA. And your office knew it in 2019, obviously, when you introduced that bill to repeal the Title II Air Commission. And I think everybody now is getting to know what you knew in 2019, which is this is going to be damaging to all veterans, especially West Virginia. They want to close the Parsons, CBOC, and open a CBOC in Buchanan. I don't know. I mean, if they've tried to drive from Parsons area to Buchanan in the middle of winter or something like it's not an easy drive. And even the government, even the GAO report before this even published said that VA's information was incomplete. They didn't have enough information to do their recommendations. And I think that's the main problem. And when it comes to the ER, I know Olivia has this information that we sent it to her about. There's a Stanford study about elderly veterans for civilian ERs versus VA ERs, and elderly veterans had a better outcome, and it would cost less for taxpayers to go to the VA. There's actually a higher mortality rate for elderly veterans at non-VA emergency rooms versus VA emergency rooms, and that was a Stanford study. And I know the VA seems to now be trying to redo some of their information after post-COVID, and that's going to delay this whole process. And I was just curious. I know you mentioned your bill earlier. I just didn't know if you were considering reintroducing that now that everybody knows what you knew. And there's, because it seems to be, I haven't met one person yet that is in favor of the VA's recommendations. Honestly, there's not one single person from anywhere that thinks it's a good idea.
Let me say, Brian, this.
So,
our whole purpose, basically, Senator Rounds and I introduced it before. We'll introduce the bill before and have them come before the VA committee to basically tell us what their purpose of, the actual purpose of why they want this AIR Act, why they think, is they downsizing because of efficiency, are they downsizing because of money, or basically they believe the private sector can pick up the care, which we know that can't. So we'll put them on the spot on that one, but I think that's the purpose why we need to reintroduce it. Like I said, we're jumping on this quick enough right now to raise all the concerns I think that everybody should have, and the families that depend on the veterans. And if there's a hospital that's basically not been kept up, and one that's in terrible fiscal repair, or, just can't be done, then that would be a decision to be made. But if they've been well maintained, well equipped, and they've all been maintained properly, then to get rid of them, you're not going to have anything that will replace it. I've got, I'll go back to our panel here. If you have anybody here, I'll go back and forth. I've got three people. I think I've got John Powell, Danelle Harmon, and Jim Dodrell on virtual, and I'll come back to you all. Do we have anybody here? Go ahead.
I've downloaded and printed this off and thumbed through it a little bit. And there's a statement in there that says this has to be every 4 years reconsidered. Am I reading that right?
Olivia?
Sorry, could you repeat that last part?
What they're saying is every 4 years, the way the AIR Act is, it reads that every 4 years it has to be reevaluated.
I have not read that, so maybe you and I can talk after this. I haven't seen that yet because, as I understand it, this is kind of a one and done. But we can talk separately.
And if I read this right again, there's $51 billion in assets they're considering.
51 billion in
Yeah,
assets.
if I read it right, I could be wrong. But
No, it's,
I just
you
thumbed through
read,
it.
you went through the AIR Act.
I printed it out and read
Olivia,
it.
you want to write all these concerns down and find out and get an answer?
Oh
back?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you know the amount, did they list the amount as far as 51 billion? Million or billion?
Billion.
That's
I will have
a B,
to double
not an
check
M,
that
that's
number.
with a B.
So I had a couple questions too that a couple veterans asked me to ask.
Please do.
They want to know. What's the wrong page? I'm sorry. Will there be if they move services, like on TV the other day they were saying some people would have to go to Connecticut to get some services. This was on the news.
Specialized services that the VA could get at another VA facility.
And you would have to go there.
And maybe whatever specialty that would be, it would be Connecticut would be the closest one.
So they're wanting to know, is the VA going to pay for their way up there?
Gotcha.
And they're like, if they have to take their spouse, do they need a place to stay and stuff like that? And one of them was the every 4 years deal. That's one of them. But
We'll find out about the every 4 years. We'll find out about 51 billion. That looks like that's the amount of assets they're in.
But my main concern is we went through this, say 4 years ago, with the vet centers. And they kept saying, we're only going to reduce services. We're not going to do away with these vet centers, but we lost our vet center. So is this the first shot across the bow of getting rid of the VA hospitals?
That's my concern.
Okay.
That is really my concern.
One more thing. Huntington VA Hospital was a 5-star rated hospital nationwide. We had a meeting with the director, and all the hospitals in the United States, including civilian hospitals, were rated. Huntington is rated a 5-star hospital. Why would you get rid of a 5-star hospital?
That's another question I have also.
Okay.
When all this came up, we're the same concern you are. That's why we're here, to make sure that
And
we're
we just
confirming
got a
what
Fisher House.
Fisher House was there, and we,
I mean,
our relationship, Mr. Fisher, we go clear back. When did all that begin?
that's about.
But that was about when we had him step. Remember when we ran out of money and they had to shut down and we couldn't pay
The death
burial costs,
gratuity.
death. Ken Fisher at that time, right?
The death gratuity for troops in combat, their
I called
families.
Ken Fisher and I said, Ken, I need help. Will you backfill? He says, I'll pay for everything that the federal government doesn't pay for until they start paying again. He picked up every death benefit for every family until. So we just really became very good friends. And when it came time, he said, Joe, he said, where do you think? And he says, I think you have one down in Huntington, West Virginia. And I says, Ken, you can't find a better one in the country. He would not have done it and invested down there and put a Fisher House if he didn't see the quality of care that was being given there. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have on the line then, Danelle, is Danelle still there, Harmon? Danielle, you still on?
Yes, Senator. Thank you again for having us today. My concern is this, not only for all veterans, but particularly for our female veterans. It can be hard for my sisters to be convinced to get their VA benefits in the first place. And the VA has greatly improved services to female veterans in the past few years. And I get my VA care or my health care from VA, and I'm well pleased. But if we take these centers, either the CBOCs or the hospitals, out of these communities, our female veterans are going to have nothing. And they're just starting to get the different care that we need as opposed to our brothers.
I was going to say, Danelle, it's taken quite a while for us to give the female veterans the attention they needed and the health care that they need and deserve. And we're just getting, I think, now getting acclimated to that. And you'd have to start all over again is what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have anybody else on the panel here? Please, sir. Go ahead.
I have a true concern about going to civilian hospitals. I have 3 heart attacks. Dr. Carter was my doctor here at CAMC. He retired. They sent me to Huntington. Huntington's been taking care of me. Now they want to send me back to CAMC, but no doctor wants to deal with me back here because I wasn't their patient since Carter's gone. So I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place.
You're still getting service at
I'm getting services at Huntington, yes, but they wanted to send me to CAMC.
Who did? Huntington did?
Huntington did, yes. So I went up there, I called all the cardiologists. Not one of them would take me because of it. Now, there's a new cardiologist over there. He said, well, come over and let me check you. So he went over, he walked in the room, he looked, said, I'll see you in a year. The cardiologist in Huntington said, come back here.
Good.
He said, we need to take care of you back here. I see him 3 times a year. The person over there didn't even put a scope to my chest or anything. I've had 3 heart attacks. The Huntington VA put a pacemaker defibrillator in me. I get better treatment down there. And fortunately for me, I've been the state commander of the VFW and other things, and I've been in your office several times in Washington. If I have a problem with veterans, I come to you, or I call Kim or someone, and they get it fixed. I can't do that with the civilian hospitals as well.
We can't either.
The veterans are taken care of, and we need to make sure that it stays that way.
I got you. Thank you. John Powell. John, you on?
Yes, sir, Senator. A couple of points, and I'm reading the report. And one of the things it states is through 2029, they're predicting in out of the Pittsburgh area specifically in the Northern Panhandle, a 14% decline in enrollment. I question any decline in enrollment for veterans, especially since we've been in a conflict since 2001. I think that our veterans eligible for care is going to be greatly increasing, not decreasing during that period. And I question those numbers.
We're questioning the same numbers in many cases, not just that one. Olivia, do you have anything on the accuracy or the concerns that other senators might have on the numbers?
Yeah, I think, yeah, we're all quite concerned with the accuracy of the numbers. I think Brian mentioned the GAO report that outlined some of those concerns. They're really looking at all of these recommendations on a national level. So they're saying veterans are all heading to the Southwest. So we need to beef up the Southwest, states like Alabama and places like that. And so I think there's an assumption that our population will go down and our enrollment will go down. And a lot of rural states, especially like Senator Rounds and Senator Sanders up in Vermont, we have a lot of concerns about how accurate those are. So we'll be flagging those concerns and making that GAO report more well-known and well-circulated.
Just another point on history in itself, as we repeat ourselves. TRICARE was a great thing for retirees, and now all of a sudden that benefit they've cut the funding on it. Retirees are now paying co-pays. They're now having to pay enrollment fees. Their prescription costs are going up, and it all because we tried to save money. And this is what is going to happen to the VA if we allow them to get a bite of the apple, or they're going to keep taking more and more and more?
If we're not vigilant as we are right now, we don't start early enough, absolutely.
I have one more question.
Okay.
No, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
In the report, I read that, and if I read it, I'll just skim through it. If by the end of
How long was the report?
It's about that thick. I printed it out. Me and him read it while we was coming up here.
Part of it was 70-some pages.
So in that report, if I read it right, it says by the end of 2023, if Congress doesn't adopt a resolution to fix this, however we want it fixed, then it becomes adopted and the VA goes forth with this recommendations. Is that true?
A lot of things are written that way. Basically, what they're saying, if there's no objection, then we must say it's all accepted.
So it will be accepted if y'all don't do anything?
That's usually things will happen. It'll go through there with any objections. Then what happens if no one's on top of it, and all of a sudden it comes to us, you're not able to basically build the defense against why you shouldn't do that. That's why we're starting early enough now, a year in advance, a good year in advance. And if you don't, and you don't start these questions that you all have given us today, that we will follow up with. Olivia will go back. I'll go back to the VA committee. And the Secretary of the Veterans is a friend of mine, and Dennis, we'll talk about all these things. And I said, Dennis, we want to meet with your committee, the people that you have putting this together or wrote the report. Okay. So whoever the drafter of that report will be the person that assemblated all the stuff. And sometimes they do it in a cocoon to the standpoint they're doing what outcome they want, not really what the needs are, the desire may be. It's the outcome they need, trying to make this fit with this, whether it be dollars or logistics or what it might be. Okay. And that's the problem they run into, and they just try to justify it. And if you don't push back, it'll happen. James, real quick.
What civilian staff has the training with someone that has a heart surgery or a knee surgery that wakes up in the middle of a post-traumatic stress nightmare? Who can handle that? Who has that training? I would say probably the VA and a rare few civilians. That's my concern also.
That's a great question, because they don't. I mean, the average citizens, and they're not trained for that. They're not trained for the PTSD, and we know that. And that's been the biggest challenge we have right now within our veterans, all organizations. I have Jim Dodrell on the line. Jim?
Thank you, Senator, for having this meeting. One of the areas that I've concentrated on for many years and continue to concentrate on is our homeless and nearly homeless veterans population. And I think, as you know, the VA has provided for some time valuable service in VA or veterans homelessness. An example of that is the Homeless Veterans Resource Center in Huntington. Any given night in America, we have more than 40,000 veterans who are sleeping on the streets of our country. And I'm wondering, does the VA recommendation include curtailing or limiting this important service that the VA provides now?
Jim, I would say that would be suicidal if they're doing something to do away with that, because one thing we've attacked is there's two things we've attacked. There's not a veteran in America that should be homeless. Now, if there's a mental problem and something we haven't addressed or gotten to, but we should be absolutely out there following these veterans. We know pretty much where everybody is. And, when they're discharged and they've gone for services someplace or another, we have a record. But to have a veteran that's basically homeless is unacceptable, and have a veteran that's unemployed that wants to work is unacceptable. And that's why we've raised the stakes, and we have a lot of corporations now that are saying, I hire a vet. Now, I hire a vet first. They'll look at that, and it gives you an opportunity to get a good job. These are things you have to continue to monitor. If you don't, they'll fall through the cracks. And that's what's happening. It's just atrocity. I can't, Olivia, have you heard anything from that standpoint? Did you all read anything in the report that might have showed homelessness?
Yeah, Senator. So the Air Commission is just focused on infrastructure. So any infrastructure they relocate, reduce, expand, whatever you have it, they're making the assumption that that service will be provided elsewhere. So the services shouldn't be impacted, especially like the one you're speaking about. But the recommendations just don't go into enough detail. So again, they're making an assumption, and we're worried that they're making those assumptions blindly without understanding the rest of the community. So in theory, those services should not be impacted. But like Senator Manchin said, we want to get ahead of it early because we don't want them to just not worry about it and just, assume it's going to happen. And on the past question of the timeline, I'm sorry, I couldn't see who was asking that. But I'd be happy to talk after this in a little more detail about what happens if the recommendations get voted down by the president or voted down by Congress, and what happens. And I can talk in a little more detail.
Our intention is not to go that far with it. So we're going to stop it before it gets there. If we
Mm-hmm.
Ted?
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jim, thanks for bringing that up. As far as the resource center goes and services that are provided by resource centers across the country, with regards to homeless veteran population, many of them are affected by mental illness. And one of the things, it doesn't directly impact the resource centers. However, there won't be any inpatient mental health available at Huntington, Beckley, or Clarksburg.
We're going to take a few more questions because we're trying to keep everybody on time. I think we had set for 4 o'clock, 1 hour, but does anybody on the panel have anything else that you all want to ask or contribute to it? Go ahead, sir.
I hate to be the one.
No. You're the one who read the report.
Hey, this is Jim Creasman. I had a couple of comments, if I could.
Sure, Jim, go ahead.
All right, sir. Thank you for your attention to this. But I just wrote down a couple of comments. I'm a 75-year-old disabled veteran and an advocate for the area pertinent to Beckley VAMC. In regard to the Air Commission recommendations, Beckley Medical Center has demonstrated very little to no transparency on disseminating info to local veterans. We've had no town halls, no VSO meetings, and a tremendous downturn in veteran participation in committees or access to the current administration. Now, community care access helps in some cases, but is not the panacea to expanding veteran health care. In my own personal experience, I was referred to a local cardiac electrophysiology office, and I was thoroughly disgusted with their lack of professionalism, disrespectful attitude toward veterans, and general condescension. I refused to go back. I believe that a study of the financial impact of community care visits compared to the cost of retaining at least one VA physician of a given specialty in each visit network over a 6-month period is needed. I personally believe that there would be a significant disparity in the costs, not to mention wait times involved in scheduling outside physicians. I personally would prefer to see a reputable physician within the VA system. Considering my understanding of the asset and infrastructure review and their recommendations, I believe that our 2 existing CBOCs and possibly a third coming in Summersville would become inundated with patients and incapable of providing the quality care that they now provide. Lastly, in reality, I believe that the impact of the AIR review fails to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. West Virginia veterans are in the majority restricted to a rural healthcare atmosphere, and we cannot be compared to our brothers residing in metropolitan areas. Considering that we mountaineers represent the largest per capita veteran population, the VA needs to consider this and consider all potential impacts on the essential health care that we fought to deserve. Go Mountaineers.
Thank you. David Beard.
Thank you, sir.
I'm good, thanks. I've just been listening, taking a lot of notes. This is all new to me, so thanks.
You have anything, David? You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
In Huntington, we just built a in-house rehabilitation. How's that going to be affected?
Yeah.
It's brand new.
Well, I'm just telling you, Fisher House, brand new. Support the veterans, right? All the things we've done there. We named it Woody Williams under the.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing that we've done. Now thinking all that could be gone, it's just ridiculous. And I don't know where they're coming. I really don't know. I was surprised. I've been here long enough. When I was governor, and they went through the BRAC, or the National Guard, we almost lost the C-130s and this and that. And then we've come back now. We have the J models. We have all brand new C-130s. So we're a very intricate part of the military installation, if you will. And also in Martinsburg, Air Guard over there with the C-17s, tremendous aircraft capabilities. I've been through this, and nothing made sense. I was there when Senator Byrd threw all the report. His report was this big. And I'm sitting there, and I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking, well, here's Senator Byrd. He's going to make. He got up there and just threw it and kicked it off. And I said, oh, we're in trouble now. And that's what and I said, well, if that's the way you do it, that's the way you do it. So I don't have anything to kick right now, but when it's time to start kicking, we'll start kicking.
Well, I want to make one statement and I'll shut up. I've wanted to say this for 10 years. I think the messaging, when you go to talking about veterans and military, like if you want to fund the military, when you come on the TV and you say we're spending $600 billion on the military,
780 now.
But people in the real world, they don't know that that's just for military. They think that we're spending money on veterans that way. Oh. I see that all the time. They come in the next day and they say, they just spent $660 billion. The veterans is going to get took care of. And then I have to say, no, they're not. That's not us. So that's been killing me for 10 years. Can you do anything about that?
Well, we can get it accurately how much we're spending. The veterans, and the bottom line is, it's not, the United States of America has a responsibility. We take care of our military and our veterans better than any place in the world. We can see what's going on with Russia right now, big, mighty Russia, we thought. We know that people aren't taken care of well, and we know there's a big morale problem there. And they don't have the same care. No one gives as much as we give, and I think anyone that serves in uniform, first of all, anyone puts a uniform on is really willing to give their life for any of us. So you take that, first of all, the commitment, sacrifice. You know what you're doing. You put a uniform on, and you know the ultimate price you could pay. That means that there's an ultimate price that we must pay to support the person that was willing to do that. That's the thing. So I can tell you all the men and women on the Senate Veterans Committee takes this extremely serious. And Dennis McDonough, not I won't say McDonald, but Dennis McDonough. Dennis McDonough had never served in the military. A lot of us, for whatever reason, didn't have that opportunity. But I've never seen a person more committed and dedicated to fixing it. And he's the right person at the right time, so I really appreciate Dennis. And he and I have spoken quite a few times. He took the seriousness we had at our Clarksburg with the deaths we had up there, And we're getting to the bottom of that, making sure that we're changing procedures so it never happens anywhere in the country. Because that was a lax. It could be anywhere. We just, unfortunately, got hit the hardest with it. So only thing I want to say to all of you, this is the first of many meetings we're going to have. Everything we raised today, we'll get back with you all. We might call it another follow-up. But I want to thank Lamar and Terry and the team and Marcus and all them, and pulled this together, Mike and all of them that was involved, very quickly. This is something that we're going to have to stay on top of, guys. If they think that we put our guard down, I guarantee you, things will slip through. And the question you ask, if we don't do something, does that mean it goes into effect? Very well could.
That's what it says. I mean,
Very well could. Yeah, that's, because, huh?
that's the way I read it.
Yeah. And people do that. They count on that and say, well, no one's going to read it. No one's going to pay attention. And before you know it, out of sight, out of mind, it's gone. And then you say, what happened? Well, you never said anything. Well, we're saying something. And I think they expect us. In the spirit of Robert C. Byrd, if I didn't speak up, he'd come back and get me. So, and like I say, I have a good partner in Shelley. She'll fight. We'll all be fighting this very hard. David McKinley's been great to work with, and he's, I go back and forth with David on the House side because we need to make sure that we're a joint as we move through on this. But it's in, all three of my committees will be, this will all go through three committees. So we get three
Your
shots
staff
at
is
it.
great, but we want to tell you, we are your Minutemen. You
That's
call
right.
us, we
Yeah,
come running.
That's
You hear?
exactly. Well, you've done that, and I appreciate it. So everybody on the line, thank you all. Anyone have any last comment before we sign off? Did we miss
I
anything?
have one last comment, Senator. I'd like to say this is Ronnie Wheeler again.
Okay.
I always notice a lot that when they want to cut back on money, it seems that the first thing they go after are the veterans. They go after any benefits that we're getting. They want to go after, now in this case, the VA hospitals. And I'd like to echo exactly what you said. We're the ones out there putting our lives on the line for this country. And we see things like this that come up, and just this one, when I started going over this AIR Act and reading through it,
Call you right back.
I'm looking at it and going, wait a minute, if you're looking at wanting to cut back money, let me come up there to DC and give me the budget. I'll show you where you can cut back on some money to save money for the veterans.
Amen to that one, brother. I need you. I need more help like you. I tell you, they want to cut back until it's theirs. And then it's always somebody else out of sight, out of mind. But I can tell you that the veterans have a strong voice in Washington. And I'll say this final thing as we close. As divided as our country is, and it's not so much the country, it's really Congress is divided. The political system is divided, and we made it worse. There's only one thing that holds us together, and it's our military. Our veterans and our military basically hold us together. And the reason you hold us together is because for the same purpose. We can't repay you for what the sacrifices have been made and will be made. So, we've been able to govern in a crisis, but right now the world's in trouble. We don't know what this war is going to happen. I can tell you, we don't know no one does. I've spoken to some of the top generals. They don't know what the end's going to be, what this end game's going to be, but it's not going to be pretty. This is not going to be an early exit. This is not going to be something that all of us aren't going to be involved in. Right now we are. And a couple signs to watch for. If Finland and Sweden jump into NATO, it's going to rile up. He's going to have to do something. If he uses a low-grade nuclear weapons, we got to do something. Sooner or later, you're not going to sit by and watch this atrocities and genocide and people getting annihilated. You can't sit back and watch this forever, and it's got to change. And I've said this. So, United States of America, we have given tremendously to Ukraine, and we're prepared to give a lot more. We've given them everything they could use, that we knew that they were trained on and could use. We've been doing training with them since 2014. So they're up to speed better than what the Russians were, to be honest with you, and some other services. And I know people are criticizing, well, we should do this. And I thought, well, the airplane, remember we heard about the MiGs? Get more MiGs? The bottom line is the MiGs coming from the NATO allies versus the MiGs that they're flying in there. They're non-NATO. They have different there's different communication equipment, different armament on them. And they were saying that they could do that, but they have 70 aircraft. They're not flying, they're only flying 5 or 6 sorties a day. So the air defense is pretty good on what we've been told. The air defense that the Russians have is pretty adequately and pretty well mobile to where it put them in jeopardy. So the S-300s is the one, that's the equipment that really, and I think they're getting more of that. That's a Russian-made defense weapon, missile defense for air defense. They're getting that. Can you imagine, here's Russia losing their flagship, Moscow? Can you imagine? And they're going to say it happened because there's a fire. And we know it was a Tomahawk missile that took that baby down. It wasn't no fire in the hole, as they would say. So the thing of it is, I'm proud of what we've done. I know we're committed to doing whatever. How long we're going to be on the sidelines, whether we're pulled in or jump in, I don't know, but that's a possibility. Nobody wants to go to a world war, and who would have ever thought in the 21st century we'd see a land war in Europe? Who would have ever thought that that could even happen? Imagine. So with that, we're just concerned about how it's going to escalate, where it's going to end, but I can tell you, we've been able to unite the NATO allies. Someone said Putin did something that hadn't been done in 600 years. He got Sweden off the bench. They're involved, and they haven't been involved in 600 years. So you can tell the United States is organized. And, you have to give President Biden credit for what he's been able to bring the allies together, and I do. And we're making, I think, decisions on getting things to them as quickly as we can. But there's a lot of things that they're just not been trained up on. So we've got to give them what they can use, and we're doing everything there. The thing I would like to see for the United States of America to lead the charge on a Marshall Plan, to let the Ukrainians know the world will come and rebuild Ukraine with them, as we did in the Marshall Plan, to give them something to fight for. Because after a while, if you don't think you're going to have a homeland, why are you fighting and dying for something that's not going to be back to where you came from? If they know that we're committed and the world is coming behind, the free world will be behind them. Every country does their part. And so a glorified Marshall Plan for Ukraine, we'll call it the Ukraine Plan, that we're going to help them rebuild Ukraine. So guys, just keep fighting, and by God, don't give up. And I think they can take the whole country back. I hope so. So with that, let me thank you all. We'll get back to you quickly as we can. We'll get some answers to all this. We'll have another round, okay? And we'll get together. But if you'll start gathering information from all of your friends and all of your veteran organizations and those that you interact with, please do so. And what you're hearing on the reports, we'll get more information on the reports. And we'll, Olivia, if you're still on, I want to make sure that with Mari here and our contacts that we can distribute any information you have on the breakdown of the report that we should be very much concerned about, okay? You still there, Olivia?
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hear you loud and clear.
I want to make sure you get all that done. Get the breakdown, okay? Make sure we have a
Yep, we'll
breakdown
get
on the total report. We'll give you all the troubled areas that we see. If you all would interact with us and give it to Mar, anything that you've seen in the report that you want us to look into, is what we got today. With that, we say thank you all. We appreciate it very much, and be careful and be safe going home. Bye-bye.